观众朋友们，大家好，欢迎来到本次的傲神金股小股票大收益，我是 Angel。今天呢，很高兴又能够邀请到我们的商业客户，它的代码是 WCUFF World Corporate 这家公司。因为上次我做了一个和 CEO 的一个路演，然后有问了一些问题，有一些观众，那我想把这些问题整合到一起，今天一起来回答。因为目前这个铜这个事情在很难挖到，但是对铜的需求是越来越多，因为整个世界不管是那个车子电车，就是像 Tesla 这样的，都会用到我们的铜，但是铜是很难被挖掘的，所以我觉得这样的一家公司也值得我们的观众再了解更多一些。OK，Hi Nolan。
Hello, Angel. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Nice to meet you again. And
Yes, thank you.
before that, I will read some disclaimer, and then I will
Okay.
answer the questions I collected from my audience.
Okay.
那先来做一个免责声明。那今天的文稿里面会适用加拿大和美国证券投资法一些前瞻性的一些描述、前瞻性的信息，除了历史的一些陈述，也会有一些对未来的一些阐述啊，希望大家能够理解。Okay, let's start. I collect some questions. I put them like 5 questions. So let's one by one.
Sure.
First question, that is, how is the cash flow and any intention to offer more shares?
Okay, sure. As a junior resource mining company based in Canada, we don't have positive cash flow from income or revenue generation, but that's completely normal for our stage of development. We're kind of like a tech startup. So we raise money, we accomplish our goals, and then we raise more money. At this point, we've just completed a raise. We're well financed for the next planned activities. We don't have any intention to issue more shares in the immediate future. That doesn't mean we may not issue shares for a strategic investor or group that wants to come in for a large order. I'm talking, millions of dollars and say, we want to be a part of this story in a very, very big way. And it doesn't mean that we may not accelerate our plans in the near future and offer some sort of financing arrangement. But I wouldn't want your listeners and readers to wait too long, because they may be waiting for a raise that may not happen in the time frame of our company really taking off and growing very rapidly. Like I said, as a tech startup, we can move very quickly. 1 or 2 small pieces of good news or big pieces of good news could cause a rapid re-rating to the proper valuation of the company.
Understood. Thank you. 那这家公司目前还是在挖铜的这个过程，所以它目前没有正的现金流的收入。那对于正在挖矿的一家公司是很正常的。那么作为一个初级的资源开发公司，筹足资金来推进各个议程，在开发时创造更多的价值信息是一定的。那目前他们因为刚融了一圈，刚融了资，所以目前整个财务方面状况是资金充足的情况。那除非说它短期会出现一些比较重要的战略的目标，比如说和一些投资者建立一些合作关系，或者用到一些投资更大的资金去买一些矿等等，才会考虑发更多的股票。那对于这么一家公司来说，它不希望让我们的观众等太久。他感觉自己在过去的表现啊，包括现在整个运营状况都非常的良好，也希望大家能够把握住现在这么一个很好的契机吧，去关注这么一家公司。Okay, the second question. I know you are a CFO on bio background. So the market cap for WCUFF is like 37 billion. Do you think it's undervalued, and can you use financial insight to value your company, and what's the fair value?
Well, thank you, Angel. This is a very good question. I think WCUFF is actually worth a little less in US dollars. In Canadian dollars, we're worth about 42, 43 million right now. So yes, I believe very strongly, and I'll say it very emphatically, that we are significantly undervalued for the assets that we have already and the potential that we have going forward. As a CFA, I would use 2 easy valuation metrics to compare what World Copper stands against peers. I would look at other companies with similar assets and similar prospects, similar development timelines, and there is another company that is perfect as a comparison. That is Marimaca, and we did prepare a slide on that in our presentation that you can refer to in your own time. That company is trading at about 8 to 10 times our multiple with a resource established to the same level of detail as ours with with half of our size. So we have the potential to be larger. I'll talk about the second one after you translate.
OK， 那么作为一个生物背景的 CFA 啊，那他感觉他们的公司 WCUFF 是被严重低估的啊。目前他想用2种不同的公司估值法呢，先说基准估值法。那么如果看同类型的资产，或者说同类型发展阶段的公司，有一家公司我记得上次路演也有说过，叫 Marimaca 这家公司。那么比较的话，就可以看到他们的资源规模 WCUFF 是对标公司 Marimaca 的2倍，地点也是差不多的，然后也是相同类型的一个开发。那对方他们现在的估值大概是3亿美金左右吧。那目前我们 WCUFF 在美国的 OTC 它是3700万，在加拿大应该是4200万。那无论怎么样子去做一个分析啊，对方的资源规模啊是我们 WCUFF 的1半，但是你可以看到它的估值已经是我们的要10倍吧，8到10倍这样子一个情况。这是他刚才说的第一种基准估值法。OK。
The second method would be to establish the company's cash flow statements in a DCF model, or a discounted cash flow model using standard financial techniques and assumptions. So if I were to take the resource available for World Copper Escalones project, which is about $15 billion worth of copper in the ground, and establish margins and put margins and costs to extract that, and then discount it, I could get a conservative $1 billion after-tax valuation for World Copper. That's the net present value. And that's after we issue a preliminary economic assessment. So it'll be actually better than that, but let's say conservatively $1 billion as the preliminary economic assessment. That's where you take the resource and say, how much do we think it's worth? At that point, you can then discount it to say 30% of the value, because you say this is a riskier investment. There's a lot of development timeline ahead. That would put the company at least $300 million US in valuation. That would be 10 times roughly where we are today. That's how valuable I think the company is at the bare minimum.
好，这是刚才用了一个基准方法，我们用第2种方法来看这家公司，用比较常用的 DCF 模型。那么我们看一下的话，它目前地下的价值的铜大概是15个 billion， 也就是150个亿的铜在那里，然后要去挖等等。那就算最保守的吧，我们折现之后。因为我使用贴现现金流这个模式那大概是有1个 billion， 也就是10个亿美金。那再退一步，这已经是估非常保守了。我再退一步，因为这个开发当中会有很多的精力、人力、物力以及时间，这个大家包括风险，对吧？都要考虑进去。我就算再打个3折吧，那也要比现在37个 million， 也就是3700万要多很多吧，起码是。要有370个 million3.7个亿总是有的吧。所以无论是用基准的方法，还是用 DCF 模型的方法来看，这家公司目前的估值是3700万不管是用哪一种方法，同类公司的比较，还是说用现金流的折算，那 DCF 模型都是一家大大被低估的一个公司。OK。
Thank you.
So the third question, it shows like this is audience asked me. He said 60 million share outstanding, 29.6 float. How about the rest of the shares?
Yeah, so I believe we have about 40 million shares that are free floating. The other 20 million shares are held by a company called Wealth Minerals, which is the company that World Copper was created out of a number of years ago. So they hold the shares and they are a great shareholder, very supportive. The remaining 40%, 10%, so about 6 million are held by insiders and close associates. Those would be people like myself, other management, as well as our friends and family who we know are not going to sell. And that would leave a remaining 34 million shares as free float in the market that is traded by retail investors such as yourselves, institutional investors, asset management funds, and available for purchase to the general public.
OK， 他觉得这个数字可能因为这是我们 VIP 一个观众问的，可能这个数字不是很准确。他们其实是6000万的流通股，然后其中35%是他们在上市前的另外一家公司叫 Wealth Minerals 来持有的。然后剩下大概是4000万的流通股，然后4000万流通股里面大概8%、10%是内部人士会去持股，那剩下的大概还有3400万这样上下的一个是流通股的情况。Okay, the fourth question for the copper industry, do you think it's harder to find copper, this kind of resource, or it is harder to sell the copper?
It is definitely very hard to find copper. Copper deposits that are economic and at a very large scale that are worth developing are very hard and difficult to find these days. Major companies pay hundreds of millions of dollars for very prime copper deposits, which is obviously something we are turning Escalones into and will become very clear very soon about. Copper has been used for thousands of years, just like gold. It has been used in industrial capacities, electrification of the economies, and it's going to be used tremendously for growing electric vehicle usage, as well as infrastructure, solar and wind turbine development, et cetera, going forward. So what that means is a lot of the best deposits have already been mined over the last hundreds of years and decades, which has left us with more challenging to discover deposits that cost a lot of money to develop and find. But the price of copper has gone up as well. To sell copper is very, very easy. There's a very active market for copper around the world. It's a global economy. Every single country uses copper to some extent. Every manufacturer uses copper, from cars to cell phones to computers, to just buses, housing, buildings, etc. So that selling copper is not an issue at all.
Understood. 那我刚才有问他，我说作为铜业啊，到底是铜资源难找还是卖铜比较难卖啊？他说其实铜资源是非常难找的，然后卖铜是很好卖的。那我不知道大家有没有看上一次我采访的路演当中就有说到，铜这个东西可以用在很多的地方，包括现在很火的那个 electric vehicle 啊，那个电动汽车啊，包括我们的平时的做一些建筑啊，包括电脑啊、电话里面都会用到铜，所以铜资源的紧缺是过去100年来的一个问题。但是铜就很好卖了，也造成了铜就越来越好卖，当然铜的价格也就是与日俱高这样一个问题，所以铜资源难找，铜很好卖。
I'll just say one more thing about that, Angel. I actually get people contacting me through multiple channels, including emails, LinkedIn, phoning me, saying, do you have any copper to sell? We need to secure supply for the next years or so. It's becoming harder for these people who are buying copper to find reliable sources of copper, which is only going to help the price go up in the coming decades.
Got it. 对，其实它虽然现在还在挖矿的阶段啊， 但是已经有很多的买家来通过各种的渠道联系他，说你有没有铜啊，然后想锁定明年的价格嘛。那也足以见得说，即使我们正在挖铜这个过程当中，已经有很多的买家来问了。Okay, the last question. If it is harder to find copper, why WCUFF can find such a good resource? If it is harder to sell copper, what will WCUFF do with the sales?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot about why we have such a good deposit. I would say not why did we find such a good resource, it's how come the previous people who owned it didn't realize it was such a good resource. And the reason for that is they simply didn't have the experience that my team has, that myself have. They were also focusing on this deposit as a gold and copper deposit. And without both of those elements, you can't make the deposit work. We have focused on it as a copper deposit using a different processing technique and extracting a different component of the ore body. And that has allowed us to make this a fantastic resource. And again, that comes down to experience in the mining industry, understanding of the global economy and the marketplace, and being able to capitalize on that. I'll have another comment after you translate.
Okay. 他觉得 WCUFF 为什么能够找到如此好的资源啊？其实是基于为什么别人会错过那么好的资源，因为他的团队在这方面是数十年的经验啊，每一个团队都能够，团队当中每一个成员都能够发现说，哎，这个最大的铜资源，那目前他们是在智利的那个地方，那么了解如何去采矿、发现，然后去创造价值。那其他公司可能是跟他们一样，也是处于一个探索的阶段，但并不总是能够有这样的一些经验，可能会放弃一些东西，所以他们可能会错过别人能够发现的东西，这个是比较重要的。
Yeah, so I learned from a very young age that from my parents and my mother in particular, that you don't become successful by chasing what everybody else has chased. You become successful by finding opportunities and exploiting them before others realize how much potential there is there. And that's really what we have with Escalones, and that's what we're offering with World Copper. This is a tremendous investment opportunity at a very early stage in the company's development. This would be like investing in Tesla 10 years ago or Amazon 20 years ago or something like that. You don't make the big money by investing today or waiting for World Copper to go up to 200 or 300 million. You get on board now and you get in early enough. And so people will be asking us, how did we find such a good investment opportunity? It's because you were paying attention, you listened to me, you trusted me. I've invested over $400,000 of my own money into World Copper, sorry, $300,000 of my own money into World Copper in the last few months. I believe strongly in our story. And then you just understand that, have the confidence in the company and your abilities to understand the process of generating wealth creation. And that's how you find these types of opportunities and these good resources.
Understood. 那他这里还谈到，就是说他从很年轻的时候就从妈妈、爸爸，特别他妈妈那里就告诉他说，你不要去追逐别人正在追逐的东西而获得成功，你要尝试去看到别人错过的东西而获得成功啊。这就为什么目前他也向我们的观众来提供这样一个很好的一个投资机会。投资这样一个鲜为人知的并非每个人都真正了解的公司，那投资 WCUFF 就类似于投资可能5年前、10年前的 Tesla， 投资20年前的 Amazon 这样的一个情况。那这家公司从开始到现在，其实它的增长已经是非常明显的啊。我刚才看了一些资料，是从1300万的加元达到了4400万加元。价值的3倍呢？那就算他们刚才我们用 DCF 模型来退1万步说吧，值1个亿美金，但是现在它的估值是3700万，那很明显它是超过1亿美金这样子一个估值的公司，这就是大家投资这家公司已经获利了嘛，对吧？2倍，这是很简单的一个算术。 那他自己个人也投了很多的钱在这家公司里面。很多人说，哎，你是怎么会找到这个在智利的这个矿啊？然后是怎么？都是因为眼光吧，对吧？然后我们今天也在这里相聚一堂，花时间来听他这个公司的一个情况，也是希望能够找到一个价值低估的一家公司的一个低谷啊，希望大家能够关注一下这一家来自加拿大，在我们OTC 挂牌 WCUFF 做铜，在目前当今世界铜非常稀缺的这么一个情况下，这家公司做的是铜业这么一个非常有意思的公司。Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Angel. I just want to say one last thing. Thank you again to everybody as well. But we have exciting news coming out within the next month or so. So with this opportunity, with some other opportunities, you may invest and you have to wait for this big story to happen. We will have exciting news coming very soon that people who invest now can look forward to, and it won't take a long time for it to come around. I just wanted to make that note. Thank you very much.
Understood. 那最后呢 ，Nolan 给我们传递了他还有一个很大的新闻，大概是下个月吧会出来。那如果大家对铜这个行业感兴趣，想投资一些价值被低估的公司呢，大家不妨来看一下我们的商业客户 WCUFF。那好，今天的傲神金股就到这里，感谢您的收看，我们下次再见。